Hey guys, welcome to Cinema Brawls. This is Matt, aka Aunt Jemima, and Daniel. Unfortunately, we compare him to Mrs. Butterworth. And I am Jake, the all-around buttery goodness of people. We have a great discussion for you today. We're talking about Christopher Nolan, who is a director, believe it or not. Yeah,
that he
it's
is.
A stacked brawl of what we think his best movie is.
Overall,
what do you think his best movie is?
Overall,
yeah.
I think his best movie is, obviously, and you can go watch my Perfect 10, The Dark Knight.
Matt, what do you think his best movie is?
You can also go see My Perfect 10, coming out just a few weeks ago, about The Prestige.
No good.
And you can go see My Perfect 10, but I'm going to be talking about Inception this time, instead of The Princess Bride.
Christopher Nolan is an English film director, born and raised in London, and studied English literature at the University College of London. He has a brother named Jonathan Nolan, who, funnily enough, does not have an English accent, and together they are an incredible writing duo. Christopher Nolan got his start as a studio director and had critical success with films like Memento, and then broke into independent film. You can recognize a Christopher Nolan movie by its dark tone and aesthetics.
Complicated plots,
the need for the music to go bwah, the occasional appearance of Michael Caine. Of course, his great movies are the ones we just mentioned, as well as Dunkirk, other movies like Interstellar. But also, there's a new movie coming out soon, hopefully this summer, called Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan. Should be good, and they just released a new trailer for it last week. Well, enough of the introductions. We know our movies, you know the rules. Let's get right into it with our first impressions. Daniel, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about why, generally, you think Inception is the best Christopher Nolan movie?
I think Inception is the best Christopher Nolan movie because it was him with something to prove. It was Inception, it was an original idea, original screenplay, with no source material to draw, no decades of material that they could pick and choose from. It was something that he had to prove himself could work. And because of that, it was his version of a passion project. If you watch interviews with Christopher Nolan, I'm not totally sure how much passion he can have, but it was his version of a passion project, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's the best.
I think that The Prestige is the best for very similar reasons. He had the original stories, very complicatedly written, but still very well thought out, interesting, relatively easy to follow, had good characters portrayed by great actors. It was a stepping stone to Inception, I guess, in terms of, hey guys, look what I can do. But I think Prestige was just the perfect mix of still messes with your mind, but enjoyable and understandable.
Fair.
And I go into an entire half-an-hour video about why I think it's great. Go watch it.
Shameless plug there. Now, Jake, why do you think The Dark Knight is the best movie?
For much of the same reasons that Matt just said, also shameless plug, go watch my half-an-hour video on why it's the best. But, I mean, we're talking about, first of all, one of his most widely recognized movies.
That's true.
And part of a trilogy. Here's the thing that I think really shows The Dark Knight stands out, is because there were 3 of those movies. That was number 2. It wasn't the first. It wasn't the last. Yet it is so much more critically acclaimed. I need you to stop smiling like that. It is so much more critically acclaimed than those first 2.
Usually the number 2s in a trilogy are bad.
Yeah, exactly. But the reason it was so good is because he just knocked this one out of the park on every level. And I just like what he did with Batman as a whole. I mean, there was a lot of originality that he brought to Batman. Batman lives in a universe where things are ridiculous, but he put this on such a line of realism that it makes you watch the movie and go, oh shoot dog, what if, you know? And he takes a superhero and a superhero movie and he turns it into something that is completely different. It's not a superhero movie. It's just amazing in every way possible.
Marcus said, Brawl.
Alright, I'll go first. So, the story of Inception is that it's a heist movie and Brain. Done. Cool. Moving on. What's the story of Prestige, Matt?
Okay, well, I was going to go into a little more than that, but whatever. Guess who's not voting for your movie? Just kidding.
This is a magic movie with science. Mine's about a guy that dresses up like a bat. Let's move on.
So who's voting for the story? I think the
Furless Furry.
Hold on. Don't continue. Don't continue. I will not let you continue after you say the words furless furry in sequence.
Yeah, Daniel, I've known you for about 12 years, and all that time of friendship did not prepare me for that statement.
The Prestige is a story about two magicians. One guy's wife dies, maybe or maybe not by accident, and then they just start this bitter rivalry of always trying to one-up each other and sabotage each other, and it is a really deep character study in how far these two are willing to go to hurt the other in order to preserve their own career and legacy. Again, watch my Perfect 10 where I talk extensively on the subject.
We can only put so many cards in the video, Matt.
I have one more. Let me give one more. And I just think it's so well told. Just with like the edits and things, it's like Christopher Nolan himself is a magician talking about magicians. And that's why I think his storytelling in this is the best, because it's just so intricate, and he really came into his own as I have this vision. I really want to make this twist. No offense to Batman, but yeah, there's decades of source material to go off of. Sure, he made his own with it, but
Batman's story, just because it wasn't original, doesn't mean he didn't add his own flair to it. What I'm saying is he did something with Batman that hasn't been done before. He took a skeleton and turned that into his own thing. And I think he did such a good job of creating his vision for that's why those movies are so memorable.
That skeleton has a name. His name is Christian Bale. We'll talk about him in characters.
Tell us about the story of Inception, if you care to elaborate more than Heist in Brain.
That's it. I mean, the point of the movie is not the story. You're not here for the plot of Inception. You're here for the crazy character moments. You're here for the city turning on top of itself. Story's not quite as important. That's why it's Ocean's 11, but inside Cillian Murphy's head.
Who is voting for Inception? Who's voting for The Prestige? Oh dear, who's voting for Dark Knight? There's got to be one of these in these three-way brawls, right? Straight tie.
Exactly. Let's get it out of the way now.
Moving on to the characters now, where I will start, and I think that the characters are just so deep in Prestige. There's just so much pain and ambition in their eyes, and it seems like two opposing feelings almost. They get beaten down so low, but then they'd come right back around and just try so hard to get back at the other. And at the end, I don't know if they won, but they both won. I don't know. It's good. I love the character interactions, and it's, again, just such an interesting story told because of the characters and through the characters.
Well, let me give you a lowdown right after Daniel does. Go ahead.
All right, so the one thing that I will say for Christopher Nolan is that his unsung talent is getting great performances out of great actors. For a man that doesn't have emotion, I am constantly impressed with how much emotion his characters portray on film. Inception was the very first movie where I looked at Leonardo DiCaprio and thought to myself, wow, this is a good actor. Granted, I was in high school, and there were very few times ever that I thought to myself, wow, they're doing a good job acting. And so this was one of the movies that brought me into that idea that actors act. I don't know. It's a weird feeling.
Occasionally, I think one of them does.
That statement doesn't sound right to me. Alright, for The Dark Knight, I would like to talk about its two main characters, the two standout characters, being
Alfred and Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
Close. It's actually Alfred and the guy who tries to blackmail Batman. Let's talk about the two main characters of The Dark Knight. Let's start with the Joker. The Joker was the perfect villain. Just all around, not just for the movie. Not only did Heath Ledger kill it in his acting, but the Joker was written as such a freaking unique, deep villain that even though this guy was insane, you could still see yourself siding with him a little bit. You want to see him go forward. Until the end when he tries to blow up those boats. Point is...
That's your bar? Not the lighting the guy on fire on top of a pile of money? Not killing people with pull cues?
No, it was definitely the boats. My point is that he made that movie, and he was such a good antithesis? He was a good antagonist. Thank you.
I knew it.
He was a really good antagonist and just the perfect polar opposite for Batman. Now, let's talk about the other main character of that movie, which was, obviously, the city. But in the movies, the city is kind of represented by Harvey Dent. Except, the city goes a different way that Harvey Dent does. The Joker pushes Harvey Dent to a point where he snaps. And, Joker's trying to prove that point. And then he tries to do it again by making the city, or the boats, kill each other, blow each other up. But then they don't. And that proves Batman's point. The characters in that had purpose, they had drive, and they had insane arcs. And some of them weren't even real characters.
Who's voting for Inception? Who's voting for The Prestige? Who's voting for The Dark Knight? Rewatchability.
So, Inception's a long movie. It's too long of a movie. The thing is, I have my own biases and opinions about what makes a Christopher Nolan movie, and the thing is, all of his movies are too long.
They all are very long,
They
yes.
are.
So which one feels the shortest in your mind?
Which one feels the shortest?
Sure.
Memento, probably?
Out of the three we're talking about?
Out of the three, we're talking about The Dark Knight.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Because that's a 2.5-hour movie.
I know. But it also, is the most breakneck pace. You get whiplash trying to follow that thing around. An hour and a half into the movie, they capture the Joker. And they're like, yes, movie's done. Well, where's Rachel now?
Where's Rachel? That's true. Martha. I do enjoy the pacing of The Dark Knight. I feel like at no point does it get boring. It doesn't start boring. It definitely doesn't end boring. At no point in the middle am I like, man, I wish this would speed up. The whole thing is just at a pace that keeps you entertained. I think that's why it feels
hardcore.
Whereas with Inception, I feel like there were things that we just kind of focused on for a while, and I'm like, this probably didn't need to be in the movie, or they're taking their sweet time here. I absolutely feel that way with The Prestige, though. I feel like they focused on too many things that I was like, I don't really care about this.
The one thing that I will give The Prestige is that it is of the three movies, I would even say that The Prestige is the most difficult to follow.
Oh, it absolutely is. But I think that works in favor of rewatchability, is because it is too long. They do linger on some weird shots, but everything in there is intentional. Like I said, the freaking title sequence seems like some random images, but it has meaning. Every shot in there, every time Christian Bale's character is talking to his wife, and you're thinking, okay, can we get back to the magic and the sabotage now, please? But it's intentional. And there's just, you have to go back and rewatch it just to pick up on all those things to put it together. And maybe that hurts its rewatchability because it's like, oh, well, I didn't get that at all. I don't want to watch it again. But for me, it really, really helps the rewatchability because the more I watch it, the more I understand and appreciate it that much more.
I get what you're saying. With that, I feel like that's how most of his movies are.
I think that's how Inception was, with maybe not every shot being intentional.
And obviously, I don't feel like Christopher Nolan's going around putting crap into his movies that he doesn't need to. Mm-hmm. Everything is vital.
He's a robot.
Right. But my point is, on the first watch of The Dark Knight, you get what's going on and you can catch everything. It's not.
You don't need to watch Batman Begins to understand The Dark Knight,
which is amazing. Inception, you gotta watch a couple times, and then you start picking things up. The Prestige, I still don't think I fully understand. I've watched it a couple times. But that doesn't make it a bad movie. It's still a fun movie to watch. I'm just saying that The Dark Knight is at a place where you can watch it, understand it on the first go, and then still pick up stuff on the rewatch.
For sure. I would say that The Prestige is probably Christopher Nolan's most whimsical movie, if that's a bad word to describe it.
It's not as dark, but it's also still pretty dark.
Pretty dark.
Really? I think The Prestige is the darkest of all of them. And one of them has the word dark in it.
But it's also talking about magic.
Magic!
There's birds everywhere.
Yeah, and that guy kills himself repeatedly. I feel like Dark Knight is by far the most rewatchable.
Yeah.
You know what? I guess if we were going to put it to a vote, anybody voting for Inception? I vote Prestige.
Thanks.
Dark Knight. Yeah. For merits in genre, I feel like... this is hard. Because we were talking earlier about Christopher Nolan becoming an independent filmmaker. He and his brother write these stories. And no offense to The Dark Knight, it was still super original for what it was, but what it was still a studio movie. Warner Brothers is like, we need to reboot Batman again. Who can do it the best at the moment? And it was Christopher Nolan, and he did. And so I feel like with movies like Inception and Prestige, this is where they have a little bit more time to shine because it's Christopher Nolan writing what he wants to write, making the movie and writing the stories he wants to tell, and doing it in the way he wants to do it.
Yeah, see, that's my thing, is it was a studio movie, but the reason it's such a good trilogy is because he made it his own. He turned it into something that the previous Batman movies had not been. He went from bat nipples to the world's best supervillain. My point is, I mean, that movie shouldn't be discredited because it was made by a studio and the framework
I'm not
was
saying
already
it
there.
should be, I'm just saying it's...
I'm saying Christopher Nolan is best known for The Dark Knight by people at large, which put his name out there. That's especially impressive since it was the second movie again, because Batman Begins didn't do that for him.
Inception is one of those movies that is way too talked about.
I do feel like besides Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan is known specifically because of Inception.
For Inception.
Because Inception is now a verb. I was inceptioned, and because of this movie, and I hate it for it.
I would love for you to pretend like you like the movie you're vouching for. And that's a good thing. Whether good or bad of a movie, the fact that people are talking about it means he did a good job.
Oh, absolutely.
But, I mean, my point is, Prestige is the least talked about still.
Fair.
While still talked about.
I think it's fantastic and more people should talk about
Oh,
it.
and I agree. But
you're right.
But at the
That's
same
no
time, yeah,
place to sit
Inception and The Dark Knight still are talked about heavily in discussions and debates. And I see The Dark Knight on a ton of top 10, or top 10, top 100 lists.
Oh, for sure. It's on ours.
Yeah.
So let's put it to a vote. Who is voting for Inception?
I think I will vote for Inception on merits.
Oh, why?
What? I won a category?
Why are you voting for Inception?
Yes.
You just agreed with me that The Dark Knight is talked more about.
I said it's talked about a lot.
Did I just
The thing is there's going to be more Batman movies. And one day, they may even be a Batman that's better than The Dark Knight. In terms of the Batmanness. But Inception is its own thing. Has been for a decade. Still talked about. Got its own verb. I think if Inception was going to win any of the categories, it would be this one. The emotional impact, please.
Yeah. So, for emotional impact, The Dark Knight, no doubt, keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
For sure.
I'm talking from the opening scene of just that shot on a building. You're already high-strung. Just from that one, no.
Yeah, because he has that freaking, nails on a window sound the entire time.
And then the glass breaks and they start dangling out of a building. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I'm scared of heights.
I'm saying that from the first second of this movie, Christopher Nolan puts you in an emotional state that he wants you in. And he keeps you here the whole time. It's like we were talking about with pacing before. The pacing doesn't slow down. You don't ever come down from that. And it stays at that level for so long, and then occasionally there's these jumps of, oh crap, when Joker blows up that prison, when Joker sets up the boats and it's getting towards 12 and you don't know what's going to happen, then the guy throws the thing out the window. There are so many scenarios in that movie where you're literally sitting there thinking, what the freak is going on? The guy puts another guy's head through a pencil. We talk about this all the time. Most movies either go like this or like this. Steady incline or constant fluctuation. Mm-hmm. Whereas it's somehow both because it's up here and it stays up here, but then it gets even higher at some points.
It's like it has two emotional lines running at the same time.
Right.
When one of them is high, the other one's low.
Right. And it's insane to me that he was able to do that. And I wholeheartedly believe that part of the reason that movie is so good is because it keeps that feeling the whole time. And there is emotion. There's so much emotion to that movie.
I'll be honest. The emotions in The Prestige are confusing. The storyline itself is confusing. It's all over the place. And again, the more you watch it, the more you understand it and can appreciate it. But the emotions are still conflicting. Like I mentioned at the beginning, you have this overwhelming sense of dread and despair of like, it's really sad to watch them go from being friends to bitter rivals to the point of literally killing each other. But at the same time, there's all this ambition and kind of, I don't even want to say hope. It's just, you get a little excited with the magic and like, oh, they're doing good. They got the upper hand. And it just, you leave at the end not knowing which one wins and who loses. But they also simultaneously both did both. And I get that it's confusing. And it probably won't win this category. But The Prestige is very personally emotional for me, because that's the single movie that got me into filmmaking. It made me understand how to write a good story, how important good actor performances are, and yeah, so it's very personal for me, but I understand if nobody else really gets emotional from it.
Emotional impact is where I would actually think Inception has it over these other two movies, because the only important thing that Inception has, the only thing that sets it apart, is the emotion. All of the visuals are derived from Cobb's emotions. All of the conflict is derived from his emotions and his confused feelings about his wife and his kids. And just the possibility of him being able to go home and the overriding emotions and feelings of wanting to be reunited for your family makes us forget that we're rooting for the bad guys. We fall in love with these characters that are legitimately doing something awful, and one of the emotional climaxes is them giving a fake dream to Cillian Murphy that his dad finally accepts him. And then at the end, when Cobb is finally reunited with his family, we don't care if it's a dream or not. We just want him to be happy. The fact that everyone, regardless of who you are, is rooting for this awful, terrible person to be back with his family, and is happy when he's happy and scared and sad when he's scared and sad, I think that that's what sets Inception apart from other Christopher Nolan movies.
Well, who's voting for Inception? Who's voting for The Prestige? And who's voting for Dark Knight? Holy crap, Daniel, that was a good argument towards the end. Yeah. I was going to vote for The Prestige.
He was saving that.
Oh, good freak. Good on you, man. Mate. Well, who won?
The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight won. Kind of want to count up how many times we raised our hand for each movie to see like who the second place one was.
Hey, editor person, flash who won second here? Yeah, cool.
Hey.
How did they do it? How did they come back?
Catches
crazy to me.
Where we talk about our next director, M. Night Shyamalan.
Now that's a director whose movies are either fan-freaking-tastic or eh.
It'll be interesting. I feel like I've only seen like one, so it'll be tricky to see what I think the best is.
I feel like that motherfucker's got movies that are either fan-freaking-tastic or get torn to shreds.
Absolutely.
By the community.
Looking at you, Avatar.
And The Village.
I thought The Village was fine.
Yeah, but
The Happening,
nobody else
that
did.
one.
Oh, The Happening.
Oh,
You're right.
Freak, man. Okay.
We'll talk about it next time.
Maybe we should switch this to which one of his is the worst.
That'd be interesting.
That's tough.
Anyway.
Bye.